Hi, this is Willie Nelson from NORML. For 30 years, NORML has provided a voice for the millions of Americans who smoke marijuana responsibly. More than 500,000 Americans are arrested each year for smoking pot. These are ordinary citizens like you and me, whose lives and careers are being needlessly destroyed. To learn how you can help, contact NORML at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORML.
And distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. This is your daily audio stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular audio podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, normalaudiostash.com. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. Welcome back to the Audio Stash this Friday. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Take a moment to join us at NORML to end marijuana prohibition in America. Just visit NORML.org. Great Friday audio stash for you today. Steve Bloom, editor-at-large of High Times Magazine, and the man behind CelebStoner.com will join us here in a few for a Celeb Stoner update out there. Also today, we'll have G Love and Special Sauce music for you here today. That's right, music from G Love and Special Sauce right here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash today. Also today, we have something important going on out there, and you can check out our website, normalaudiostash.com. For complete links to all these, NORML is offering a really, really awesome rare chance for members of the general public and NORML supporters to own a few pieces of NORML memorabilia. Up for auction on eBay this week from the NORML Foundation in Washington, D.C. are the following. And these are really huge photo posters, folks. So we have a photo poster 24 by 17 of Woody Harrelson on stage at Seattle's Hempfest, addressing this crowd of hundreds of thousands of people. Woody has autographed this photo poster right there in the upper right. We have links to this thing up at normalaudiostash.com. It's up on eBay for 10 days, folks. Also up there, we got a photograph of Alan St. Pierre, NORML's executive director, a frequent guest here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash. A photo of Alan standing with Tommy Chong as Tommy is receiving his Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2006 NORML Conference in San Francisco last year. That's signed by Alan St. Pierre. Also up there in the store are some gorgeous marijuana posters. One is a Sugar Plum, the other is Grape Ape. They are both signed by NORML's founder and continuing legal counsel, Keith Strupp. They are signed right on there. They say, let's legalize it. That's what they're signed by, Keith, and signed Keith Strupp from NORML. Also, a very rare piece of NORML-associated memorabilia and sort of prohibition history here in the United States. Irv Rosenfeld, one of the federally recognized medical marijuana patients here in the United States, donated an empty, and it is empty, folks, an empty tin that his medical marijuana is delivered to him from the federal government. It's a large, sort of almost like a cookie tin looking thing, and they pre-roll medicinal marijuana cigarettes and pack them in these tins and ship them to Irv. And he gave us this empty tin, again it is empty, to auction on eBay on behalf of the NORML Foundation. So it really is a piece of American prohibition history when it comes to marijuana. While draconian laws are being enforced around the country, while the federal government is raiding in states like California that have authorized medicinal use, they are at the same time growing and providing just a handful of patients medical marijuana themselves. And you can see the prescription that's on the side. It's a very interesting auction. We have links to it today at NORMLAudiostash.com. Bid up there, bid early, bid high. These are really one-of-a-kind items. It all benefits NORML in Washington, D.C., and all of the money will work in NORML's lobbying efforts, media campaigns, and working to end marijuana prohibition here in America. So check out the NORML eBay auctions. We have links to them today on our website at NORMLAudiostash.com. First up today, we're going to get to some news from NORML, and make sure you pick up our separate weekly NORML News podcast. You can link up to that at norml.org/podcast. Our news today. Cannabis poses less on-road risk than alcohol, U.S. crash data says. U.S. drivers involved in fatal crashes who had trace levels of cannabis in their blood or urine are less likely to have engaged in risky driving behavior than drivers who test positive for low levels of alcohol, according to case control data published in the current issue of the Canadian Journal of Public Health. Investigators at Ontario's Lakeland University Public Health Program reviewed drug and alcohol data from U.S. drivers aged 20 to 49 who were involved in a fatal crash from 1993 to 2003. Researchers separated motorists into cases: drivers who had at least one potentially unsafe driving action recorded in relation to the crash, and controls: drivers who had no such driving action recorded. Investigators sought to determine whether drivers who tested positive for cannabis but negative for alcohol were more likely to have engaged in risky driving behavior than drivers who tested negative for both pot and alcohol. Over the 10-year period, 1,647 drivers tested negative for alcohol, but tested positive for the presence of THC in their blood or urine. Researchers concluded that alcohol-free drivers who tested positive for cannabis had a slightly elevated risk of engaging in potentially unsafe action compared to sober drivers, even when controlling for age, sex, and prior driving record. However, investigators also reported that drivers who tested positive for low levels of alcohol, or 0.05 BAC, possessed a significantly greater risk of engaging in such risky driving behaviors compared to sober drivers. Investigators wrote, quote, "The findings point to cannabis as a potential risk factor in fatal crashes. Individuals who tested positive for cannabis but negative for alcohol had a 29% excess risk of having driven in a fashion that may have contributed to the crash, compared to drivers who tested negative for cannabis. Yet these estimates appear small compared to alcohol and some prescription medications." Close quote. Motorists who had a BAC of 0.05%, a threshold well below the legal limit for drunk driving in the United States, had a 101% excessive risk of having driven in a risky manner compared to alcohol-free drivers, authors reported. Drivers with a blood alcohol content of 0.10, just over the U.S. legal limit for drunk driving, had a 200% excess risk. Canadian researchers also determined that motorists who tested positive for cannabis were generally younger, male, and had a poorer driving record in the prior 3 years than drivers who tested negative for pot. Responding to the study, California NORML coordinator Dale Geringer said, quote, "This is the latest in a long line of studies to show that marijuana is a lesser on-road accident hazard than alcohol. Yet ironically, federal drug policy has been more geared towards exaggerating the minor on-road risks posed by cannabis and downplaying the known risks posed by alcohol," close quote. An analysis of French crash data published in the British Journal of Medicine in 2005, similarly reported that drivers who tested positive for cannabis in the blood were far less likely to have been involved in a fatal traffic fatality than drivers who possessed blood alcohol levels of 0.05 to 0.08. According to previous studies of on-road crash data, past use of cannabis, as indicated by the presence of marijuana metabolites in the urine, is not associated with an elevated risk of accident. By contrast, drivers who test positive for THC in the blood above 5 nanograms per milliliter, indicating recent use of pot, are typically associated with an elevated risk of accident compared to drivers who test negative for cannabis and or test positive for very low levels of THC in the blood. THC blood levels typically fall below 5 nanograms per milliliter in recreational non-chronic cannabis users within 60 to 120 minutes after inhalation. More information about this story can be found at NORML.org. Next up today, we're going to check in with Steve Bloom for the happenings with famous folk at celebstoner.com. And later on today, we're going to have some great music from G Love and Special Sauce, all here on the Audio Stash.
I want to be famous. I want to wear minks and satins and pearls. I want to be famous more than just any old girl. I want to have eyes as blue as the sea. I want all the people to look at me. I want my own show on TV. I want to be that girl. I want to be famous. Eat out at Sardi's, have parties at Spy.
Steve Bloom is the editor-at-large for High Times magazine. He's an author, music, and event producer, as well as a freelance writer for magazines such as Relics. Mr. Bloom is the man with one hand on the celebrity pulse of America and the other hand blogging away to the world at celebstoner.com and his other blog, Bloomin' Ideas. Steve, welcome here to the Audio Stash today.
Hi there, Chris.
Hey, Steve. It's great to have you back on this Friday for our rundown of celebstoner.com headlines. First up here, I see Bill Maher, of course, a great friend of NORML and marijuana law reform in general. And Bill was talking about marijuana this week.
Well, Bill's back on the air. Real Time with Bill Maher has started its 5th season at HBO, and it was on Friday. And so he's out hitting the talk shows, making the rounds, promoting. And he's made some really interesting comments the last couple of talk show visits. He had some things to say about Anna Nicole Smith's death on the Tabitha Smiley show, and then last night he was on Jay Leno's Tonight Show, and that's always an interesting session when Maher and Leno get together. The last time, High Times had named Bill Maher the best pot comic, and Jay Leno brought that up and showed the magazine on the show itself, and they had a really fun conversation about it. So I always look forward to Maher's sessions on Leno. So last night, Maher just went off on a couple of great bits, and one of them was about the Dixie Chicks. Another one was about Barry Bonds and steroids. And the one about the Dixie Chicks was pretty appropriate to our type of discussion here at Audio Stash. He recollected a time when. Well, he was talking about the Dixie Chicks because they had won, so many Grammy Awards just recently, and he was very proud of them. But he was remembering a time when he was doing Politically Incorrect, and Natalie Maines, the lead singer from the Dixie Chicks, was on Politically Incorrect, and apparently she was taking a stance against marijuana, and So Bill goes, it's a credit to them that we're even friends. He said, because I was really mean to that girl. I think I made her cry because she was very young and she was on there attacking marijuana. And I had to defend my babies. We're all entitled to our hobbies, but we've all grown since then. And so that was a great little comment. He just is always making comments about marijuana. And then his other thing, Leno set him up to sort of talk about steroids in baseball, and he really just had a blast on that one. He started off by saying, I'm for them, meaning for steroids, and he goes, I'm for drugs and rock and roll. I'm for whatever makes the product better. This is entertainment. It's entertaining to see a freakish Hulk hit the ball to the moon. And then he went on to say, it's disgusting how they all hate on Barry Bonds. He played in the steroids era. He played against all the players who were on steroids. I think Barry Bonds did steroids, either that or he went through puberty at 28. So, he keeps just hitting you with, smart lines and then the punchline. And then he ends up, his punchline on that bit was, I think each team should have a 3-roid rule. You get 3 players who are roided up and let's get them hit it to the Levitra billboard in row triple Z. So he was just so sharp and so on, he's always has something interesting to say about the drug issue. And, I call him, TV's marijuana man, and there's just nobody out there on TV that talks about marijuana, advocates, for the cause like Bill Maher does. And, when it's, his season is happening, when he's got his show on, this is really the time to pay attention because on his show he'll, invariably talk about pot somewhere along the way, and then he's making the rounds and he's stirring it up, on the talk shows.
Wow, so Bill Maher really the most honest and visible celebrity right now, actively advocating marijuana law reform, and again, he's a NORML advisory board member. Also up on celebstoner.com this week, Steve, there are a number of story links about Redman, of course, the host of the Stony Awards, and that was a spectacular show this year. Steve, of course, is the producer of the Stonies. Steve, let us know what's going on with Redman.
Well, he's yet another celeb stoner hero, and he's been having a good year with High Times this year. We had interviewed him in Method Man a couple of years ago for a photo shoot and a story for the magazine, and at that interview, although I'd met Redman years before when we had him on the cover in 1993, he was a pretty young guy then. You really didn't have much contact with him over the years, and then we decided let's get together with those two guys again, and Redman was just hysterically hilarious throughout the whole interview. He was just so funny, and we decided, because of that, he's just so quick on his feet that, he probably would be a good MC, and so we made him an offer to host the Stonies back in October, and he was terrific at B.B. King's. He co-hosted with Doug Benson from the Marijuana Logs and Best Week Ever. So Redman has continued on. He has an interview in the High Times current issue that's just out, the April issue, and plans to do many other things. And, most likely we will have him back to host the Stonies again in the future. On the website I have a poll, and it's who should be added as the next top celeb stoner. And on the site, I just have a list of who I call top celeb stoners: Willie Nelson, Snoop Dogg, Woody Harrelson, Bill Maher, people like that. And I listed, to start the site off, a bunch of those names of, who are pretty obvious, people out there in celebrity world who, take a stance in favor of marijuana and are very well known for it. And now I've been letting people vote for that. So the last two polls that I announced this last week, the two winners, Owen Wilson was one of the winners. Somewhat of a surprise in a sense, because Owen Wilson really hasn't, been in favor of marijuana in any particular way. He hasn't really stated anything really, although his characterizations on film, appear, to be very stony. But Redman's a little bit more, in our corner, and so he won a recent poll as well. So I posted that and posted an article about him, chatting, up the Stonies. He was, very kind to the Stonies. He goes, F the Oscars, F the Grammys, I'll do the Stonies and the Doobies. The Stonies, there were no egos. You ain't heard one word about anything went wrong at the Stonies. The Stonies were effing off the hook. If you haven't been to the Stonies, I advise you to go next year. Next Stonies, let's get bigger and better. Let's turn this Let's turn it out. So Redman's just a great guy, and he won his poll overwhelmingly, by the way, whereas the poll with Owen Wilson was very close. He just beat Be Real from Cypress Hill and Sarah Silverman and Kate Hudson, who he's been dating. This one was a landslide. Redman beat Travis Barker from Blink-182, Amy Poehler, Cal Penn, Rob Thomas, and Amy Sedaris considerably. So he's quite the favorite, and he's a great guy. And he's been doing a lot this year, and I think he's going to continue to do a lot more and be a little bit more well known for his marijuana advocacy now that he has a new album coming out in March, first one in 6 years. So Redman's a great guy.
Yeah, and I have to say, Steve, that when Redman took the stage with two original cast members from the Marijuana Logs, Arch Barker and Doug Benson, and they went through it, I mean, that scene, it was so hilarious, and Redman was just so spot on. It really was one of the highlights of the Stony Awards for me this year. Also, the mix of the crowd at the Stony Awards this year was very cool. I mean, Ann Dryan is there, you know, a great scientist and author and movie producer. Redman is there, a very cool hip-hop mix of a crowd with a very positive attitude.
Well, thanks a lot. And by the way, Ann came out thanks to Alan St. Pierre, who I've met Ann before, and she had heard that we were going to have members of the Weeds cast at the show, and she really loves Weeds and decided, you know, kind of last minute she would like to attend. And, you know, hearing that she wanted to attend, I, you know, asked, you know, Alan, you know, if she'd like to give out an award. At the time, Alan was giving out an award, so I kind of like arranged for the presentation, you know, that she would give out, you know, the best TV show award to Weeds, and so it was a nice moment to have Genji Cohan, the creator of Weeds, and Ann on stage, and Alan at the same time. It was, you know, one of the better moments of the Stonies.
And Steve, there are a number of other bulletins up there at celebstoner.com, and I know we can't not say anything. I know you got to have something to say about the whole Britney Spears thing this week.
Well, you know, I'm following it as much as anybody, but to be honest, you know, she's back in rehab, and, you know, she's had that kind of wiggy week where she's, you know, cut her hair and all that kind of stuff, and all over the news. You know, I'm a real kind of, let's just say, a news whore when it comes to tabloid, you know, journalism, and I don't really mind, you know, when the media goes nuts about Nicole Smith or Britney. It just, you know, there's plenty of time to cover everything. It's, you know, so I don't think it's a big problem, although, you know, some people, you know, I notice in the media criticize the media for covering these celebrity stories to the degree that they do. And, you know, this is the case now with Britney. I mean, it's, you know, all Britney all the time, you know, right now on tabloid TV and on the internet. And, but, you know, she's an interesting, you know, celebrity, you know, in our culture, and she's sort of this girl's grown up before our eyes, and, you know, seeing her, you know, come from a very young age as a mouseketeer, you know, to the point where she's, you know, kind of losing it now. So, you know, how she fits into Celeb Stoner is a little, you know, less so in that, you know, she's on the rehab sort of end of the question, and so I tend to cover that just because, you know, rehab relates to drugs and abuse, and so, you know, she's getting covered, but I don't really have any great insight into what's going on with Britney. You know, this week I'd say the stories that are interesting would be Ray Liotta having a car crash this week and having a DUI. The Sylvester Stallone story was just kind of interesting and mysterious. How he was harassed down in Australia recently during the opening of the Rocky Balboa movie down there. The police stopped him at the airport and spent a long time checking his luggage and found what appears to be bodybuilding drugs, and it could be steroids, and they detained him for quite a while at the airport, and they raided his hotel room, and he just basically just made it out of Australia by the skin of his teeth, and who knows really what he was, you know, what he had in possession, because they haven't released it yet. So that one's an interesting story as well, and you know, there's always something. The running back from the Super Bowl success story. We have Dominic Rhodes was arrested on a DUI also yesterday. So, you know, here's a guy who ran for 100 yards and now has a during the Super Bowl now has a legal problem. So there's just something every day coming fast and furious. So you got the smaller stories like that, you got the bigger stories like Britney Spears. It's just nonstop. There's always something at Celeb Stoner.
That's right, and we have links to it up on our website today, to celebstoner.com. You can go to normalaudiostash.com. I've got link ups right up there. Steve, thank you again for joining us here this Friday. It's always great to have you on the program.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Steve Bloom is the editor-at-large for High Times Magazine. He's an author, music, and event producer, as well as a freelance writer for magazines such as Relics. Mr. Bloom is the man with one hand on the celebrity stoner pulse of America and the other hand blogging away to the world at celebstoner.com. Steve joins us each Friday for his update here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash. Stay tuned to the Audio Stash here today. Coming up for you in just a minute, music from G-Love and Special Sauce.
I want to be famous, famous. Tabloids will print what I eat. I want to be famous, who I do will be news on the street. Then when I'm old, I'll have a ball. They'll be shocked that I'm living at all. When I enter, the guests will fall to their knees. And then I'll slit the throats of my enemies. Spend all my dough on wine and cheese. When I'm famous, famous, so exhausting.
Steve Bloom with the Celeb Stoner Update, and that music we use for Steve each week, that I'm Famous tune, that's from the Lascivious Biddies. We have links to them on our website today at normalaudiostash.com. Great track for the Celeb Stoner Update each week. And next up today, a choice piece of music in our audio stash for Friday and the weekend. Here's G-Love from G-Love and Special Sauce, but this is G-Love solo and alone. This is a great solo acoustic tune, really hearkening to the classic blues roots of American music. Again, it's G-Love here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash today.
I knew this gal all night long. See the bang on the wall, baby, all night long. Yeah, now I'm gone all night long. It's just a little bit too long. Yes, I'm leaving the city tonight, where I'm from. All night long, there's a noise in the street. Ooh, baby, all night long. Yes, but now I'm gone. I just couldn't carry on. Yes, I'm leaving the city tonight. I got a little honeybee all night long. She used to hop all over me, yeah, baby, oh, honey, all night long. It was nice, you know, now she's gone. I guess she didn't want to hang it on. Yes, I'ma leave in the city tonight, where I'm gone. But dangers I must face, you know, I gotta leave this place. I just gotta get on down. Yeah, 'cause today I'm sure all night long was just a little bit too long. Yes, I'ma pack my bags, I'm gone. I've been hanging out too long and I've been wasting time. I've been running round, running circles all the time. I gotta get away, baby, I might never be back no more. Yes, I'ma leave it, don't you know that I'm gone. Yes, I'm leaving. Don't you know that I'm gone? Yes, I'm leaving the city tonight.
That was G-Love of G-Love and Special Sauce solo acoustic there on NORML's Daily Audio Stash today. For our feature music, we have links to G-Love and his record company up on our website today at NORMLAudioStash.com. And don't forget to check out our eBay auctions. They're up for the next 7 to 10 days. The medical marijuana tin from Irv Rosenfeld, the photos of the buds, such great stuff in the eBay store. Don't miss out on this stuff this week. We got links to all the eBay auctions as well up on our website at NORMLAudioStash.com.
Listening to NORML's Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Make sure you visit our website at NORMLAudioStash.com. That's NORMLAudioStash.com for more information about every day's show. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Thanks for listening today. See you at 4:20 tomorrow. Podcasting technology of NORML is made possible by Red Aphid Interactive Media. More information at redapphid.com.